15.7 disorders in childhood. There are a group of conditions that, when present, are diagnosed early in childhood, often before a child enters school. These conditions are listed in the DSM-5 as neurodevelopmental disorders, and they involve developmental problems in personal, social, academic, and intellectual functioning. In this section, we will discuss two such disorders. Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder. A child with Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder, or ADHD, shows a constant pattern of inattention and/or hyperactive and impulsive behavior that interferes with normal functioning. Some of the signs of inattention include great difficulty with and avoidance of tasks that require sustained attention, failure to follow instructions, disorganization, lack of attention to detail, becoming easily distracted, and forgetfulness. Hyperactivity is characterized by excessive movement and includes fidgeting or squirming, leaving one's seat in situations where remaining seated is expected, having trouble sitting still, running about and climbing on things, blurting out responses before another person's question or statement have been completed, difficulty waiting for one's turn for something, and interrupting and intruding on others. ADHD occurs in about 5% of children. On average, boys are 3 times more likely to have ADHD than are girls. Children with ADHD have lower grades and standardized test scores and higher rates of expulsion, grade retention, and dropping out. ADHD is a chronic problem, one that can persist into adolescence and adulthood. A recent study found that 29.3% of adults who had been diagnosed with ADHD decades earlier still showed symptoms. Family and twin studies indicate that genetics play a significant role in the development of ADHD. The specific genes involved in ADHD are thought to include at least 2 that are important in the regulation of the neurotransmitter dopamine, suggesting that dopamine may be important in ADHD. Medications used in the treatment of ADHD, such as Ritalin and Adderall, have stimulant qualities and elevate dopamine activity. People with ADHD show less dopamine activity in key regions of the brain, especially those associated with motivation and reward, which provides support for the theory that dopamine deficits may be a vital factor in the development of this disorder. Sugar consumption has no effect at all on the behavioral and cognitive performance of children. Although food additives have been shown to increase hyperactivity in non-ADHD children, the effect is rather small. There is a significant relationship between exposure to nicotine and cigarette smoke during the prenatal period and ADHD. Maternal smoking during pregnancy is associated with the development of more severe symptoms of the evidence seems to point to the conclusion that ADHD is triggered more by genetic and neurological factors and less by social or environmental ones. Apparent increase in the rates of ADHD over time are poorly understood and at best speculative. ADHD may be overdiagnosed by doctors who are too quick to medicate children. There is greater awareness of ADHD now than in the past. Autism spectrum disorder is probably the most misunderstood and puzzling of the neurodevelopmental disorders. Children with this disorder show signs of significant disturbances in 3 main areas: deficits in social interaction, deficits in communication, and repetitive patterns of behavior or interest. These disturbances appear to be early in life and cause serious impairments in functioning. The child with autism spectrum disorder might exhibit deficits in social interaction by not initiating conversations with other children or turning their head away when spoken to. Typically, these children do not make eye contact with others and seem to prefer playing alone rather than with others. Communication deficits can range from a complete lack of speech to one-word responses like yes and no when replying to questions or statements that require additional elaboration. Also, difficulty maintaining a conversation because of an inability to reciprocate others' comments. These deficits can also include problems in using and understanding nonverbal cues. Repetitive patterns of behavior or interest can be exhibited in a number of ways. The child may engage in stereotyped repetitive movements. In some cases, the person with this disorder may show highly restricted and fixated interests that appear to be abnormal in their intensity. Importantly, autism spectrum disorder is not the same thing as intellectual disability, although these two conditions are often comorbid. The qualifier spectrum in autism spectrum disorder is used to indicate that individuals with the disorder can show a range or spectrum of symptoms that vary in their magnitude of severity, some severe, some less severe. Some individuals with autism spectrum disorder, particularly those with better language and intellectual skills, can live and work independently as adults. Current estimates indicate that 1 in 59 children in the U.S. have autism spectrum disorder. The disorder is 4 times more common among boys than in girls. Between 2000 and 2008, the rate of autism diagnosis in the United States increased 78%. Autism appears to be strongly influenced by genetics. Many different genes and gene mutations have been implicated in autism. A number of environmental factors are also thought to be associated with increased risk for this disorder, at least in part because they contribute to new mutations. Urban versus rural residents and vitamin D deficiency are also considered. There is no proof vaccinations cause autism.